No, Japan has been one of those countries that gets away with something for a really long time. They've been piling up debt at the government level to the point where it's like 260% of GDP. You know, that would normally be a kind of a death spiral level for a country. But they have been able to kick that can down the road for a while because they run a trade surplus, first of all, so there's a lot of dollars coming in, and they're a country of savers rather than borrowers, so the government can borrow while people save, and it kind of balances out. But finally, it's coming back to bite them. Their interest rates are going up, and the yen is going down. Now, you know, in a lot of cases around the world, a country having that kind of a problem would just be something they have to get through on their own. But Japan, because of its trade surplus, has been converting the dollars that have been coming in into treasury bonds, and they're a huge holder of U.S. government paper. So if they have to intervene in their currency markets, for instance, to keep the yen from plunging, they would do that by selling treasury bonds, taking the proceeds and buying yen. And that would put upward pressure on U.S. interest rates. If there's a big seller in treasuries out there, then we have to offer higher interest rates to attract other people to buy our bond, to convince other people to buy our bonds. And we're not in a position to handle higher interest rates. That could be devastating for U.S. finances. So we're stepping in to bail out Japan. Funny thing, there was a meeting not so long ago, and the Treasury Secretary in the U.S. had a legal pad in front of him, and his to-do list on that pad, people could, angle their cameras so they could read it, was buy yen. That was his to-do for the day. This is one of those things that buys you a little bit of time, but if we step in, buy yen and stabilize the foreign exchange value of the yen, but it doesn't address the underlying problem. Japan's government is still continuing to borrow massive amounts of new money, and their debt is going to continue to go up. And we've already seen that the financial markets are rebelling against the amount of debt that they've taken on already. So this problem doesn't go away. We might be able to stabilize the yen for a short while, but the underlying fundamentals point towards higher interest rates and lower yen for Japan. And so this is going to come back. The problem that they have right now with the yen plunging will return in the not too distant future, only the numbers will be bigger. So in short, Japan is giving us a glimpse of the future for most of the developed world, and it's not a pretty one. Yeah, you can bend the laws of finance, but you can't break them. Too much debt eventually causes trouble. And the entire developed world is in that kind of a situation with, country-specific variations. But, it's all the same problem. We're taking on too much debt or other obligations like unfunded liabilities for social programs, things like that, or derivatives on the books of the big money center banks. All of these things are problems that are continuing, and they're getting worse. So we don't know who's going to blow up first, obviously. I mean, you got Germany with their specific problems, and the UK and Japan and the US. And any one of those financial systems could run into the kind of problems that Japan is experiencing right now and require either, a crisis where a lot of debt is gotten rid of via default for the individual country, or a multi-country bailout in order to keep the problems with one country from metastasizing. So you can't know the details of how this is going to play out, but the mistakes we're making inevitably lead to some kind of a serious consequence. And it's global. It's all around the world. And there is no escaping it at a macro level. Somebody's going to screw up in a monumental way, and it's going to lead to other dominoes falling, and that will in turn lead to the currency reset that everybody's been talking about. So, if Japan is going to have the problems that it's now having, and those turn out to be unfixable, maybe that's the catalyst for a global currency reset. So it might happen sooner rather than later.
Through 2026, the yen has slid past 160 to the dollar, down double digits over the year, and analysts now float 170 as the next stop. Tokyo has intervened before spending tens of billions to prop up its currency, but economists increasingly call these efforts doomed to fail against fundamentals. Rising yields, energy import costs inflated by conflict in the Middle East, and a widening rate gap with the U.S. Federal Reserve. Each intervention buys days, not years. The deeper issue, a government still borrowing heavily while its currency erodes, remains unresolved beneath every temporary rally.
As you said, one day it's over, the next day it's accelerating. It's a war where you can't trust any talking head out there to have any kind of inside information, and tomorrow can be completely different from yesterday. There's no rhyme or reason to a lot of this stuff right now, and there are disruptions in global supply chains because of this war that aren't easily fixed. There's an awful lot of, for instance, agricultural problems that are being caused by shortages of fertilizer, which is, fertilizer is needed at a certain point in the growing process. And if you miss that point, then your crop is much smaller than it was going to be otherwise. And you're seeing stuff like that all around the world. And then same thing with energy. We in order to produce the things we produce, we need certain kinds of energy at certain points in the production process. And that's not always happening out there either. So we are still going to see the most serious results from the war. Even if the war ended today, we would have problems over the next year relating to the war. And there's no guarantee that the war ends today. And the Trump administration is under increasing pressure to get some kind of a deal done because we have midterm elections coming up. And it's completely possible, given current polling, that the Democrats could take both the House and the Senate, especially if this war isn't settled immediately and gas prices haven't gone back down yet. And that basically paralyzes the government legislatively and leads to very possibly the impeachment of Trump and maybe his prosecution. There's a lot of serious issues that will flow from the Democrats taking control of the House and the Senate. And obviously, the Republicans want to avoid that, but they're not doing a very good job of avoiding it, because to avoid it, they have to settle the war, they have to get oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz again, and work out all the kinks in the global supply chains. And we don't have much time anymore. 2 months is not enough time to take care of all that. So in this case, geopolitical turmoil is going to lead to political turmoil in the U.S., and maybe supply chain turmoil around the rest of the world. Foreign war happening at the same time as an epic financial bubble in the AI sector is expanding. It's causing a lot of turmoil. There are days when it looks like a lock. You short the AI stocks, there's your big short for this generation, you make a fortune. But the very next day, the AI stocks go straight up, and I've got friends and family who are, some of them, massively long tech stocks, and others who are massively short tech stocks. So I'm hearing this from both sides of the investing strategy spectrum. And, on any given day, one of them looks like a genius and the other one looks like an idiot, and then it switches. And this is not good for the financial markets when nobody has any idea what's happening out there in the intermediate term in macroeconomics. Then you don't get the kind of capitalism doesn't work in that kind of an environment, because you need an element of certainty about what the currency is going to be worth that you get paid in, and what your potential sales are if you build a new factory, and you don't have that in this kind of an environment. So there's a lot of productive investment that probably isn't happening right now, while a lot of potential malinvesting is happening in in the AI sector. Just because, in a financial bubble, nobody really knows how it's going to play out, but they feel like they have to be in the game. And that's what's happening with AI right now. Everybody's building data centers. And it's not clear what the use case is, or the business case is for a lot of the AIs that are being developed, especially because China's coming in with open source AIs that seem to be a lot cheaper for the same kind of computing power than the private sector AIs that are being built in the U.S. That leads to the possibility that a lot of the AI data centers that are being built in the U.S. right now might be just stranded capital. In other words, they didn't need to be built because there are AIs elsewhere. They're going to do the same job for less money. And that's potentially a big deal. If you have a financial bubble that bursts, a lot of deals don't work out and a lot of capital is stranded. And we're taking that risk right now with AI, although, nobody really knows what's going to happen in that sector this year or in the next 10 years, because it's completely uncharted territory. But I think there's a safe bet that some of what's going on now is going to turn out to be a mistake, and we won't find that out until the bubble actually bursts, or until things settle down into an actual business instead of just a race to build new models and data centers without much regard for how you're going to make money in the short run.
Japan may be the most extreme example, but it's far from alone. Debt loads are stretched thin across developed economies. The US, UK, and Germany all carry their own strained versions of the same problem, compounded by trillions in pension and healthcare promises that remain unfunded. Economists have taken to calling this the everything bubble, a period where sovereign debt, real estate, and credit markets have all been inflated together by years of easy money. Nobody knows for certain which economy will crack first, but the underlying pattern is the same everywhere. When borrowing outpaces growth for long enough, it eventually forces a reckoning through default, restructuring, or some kind of coordinated bailout.
They work. They expand, then they burst, and then there's a race to the exits. And most people don't make it out the exit in time to avoid bankruptcy. But yeah, private credit is a big part of this. And that is kind of a bubble in its own right. I mean, AI is part of it because a lot of the software companies and a lot of the chip companies have taken in private credit capital. But even if you remove AI from the equation, private equity and private credit were kind of bubbles in their own right. There's just a lot of money being raised and spent. For instance, in the insurance sector, a lot of private credit companies are buying and or starting insurance companies. Because insurance is basically an investment company. You take in premiums and then you invest that money. And if you invest it wisely, you make enough to more than justify the payouts that you have to make on your policies. Well, the private credit guys are in the insurance business because they believe they can invest a little more aggressively because they have better, closer to inside information in a lot of cases. So they can make more money on the investment portfolio of their insurance companies, and in that way build up profitable companies and then sell them at some point. But that's the kind of thing you hear in bubbles is, oh yeah, we can make more money than the traditional way of doing this, and therefore we're the smartest guys in the room, and trust us, we'll make you a lot of money. And it very seldom works out. So, you got that. That's in addition to the AI bubble. That's why they call this the everything bubble. You've got government bonds in a bubble right now, and you've got AI, which is, they coined the term the everything bubble before AI even started inflating. So we've got a lot of things that can go wrong. And again, there's no way to know. how this plays out in what sequence and who goes first or anything. But I think there's a safe bet that there is serious financial turmoil somewhere out there coming our way in the government debt markets, or private credit, or private equity, or real estate, or AI. And there's just a lot going on that could go wrong. And every time something new happens, it brings the date of the catalyst for the next crisis forward. And it doesn't feel like we're that far from something serious happening that starts in one place and then affects every place else.
On top of all that, there's an unprecedented flood of capital pouring into AI. Hundreds of billions committed to data centers and chips, much of it funded through private credit rather than conventional bank loans. Skeptics see parallels to past bubbles here. The rise of cheaper open-source models from competitors raises a real possibility. Some of this infrastructure could end up as stranded capital, built out faster than the business case to justify it. Private credit's aggressive push into related sectors, including insurance, has also caught the eye of regulators and analysts who see uncomfortable echoes of the exuberance that preceded 2008. A bet that faster, newer money can keep outperforming, right up until the moment it doesn't.